stay the course, keep doing what you're doing. You're on the right track, even though it may not look like it. Enjoy your life. Be everything that you can be. Be involved in everything you can be involved in, and just keep going till you get to the end.
This is a journey.
Let me take you on a journey.
There will still be
The journey. The journey.
new sheriff in town, and his name is
The journey.
Journey.
This thing is bigger than Nino Brown. This is
The journey. The journey.
What is it that moved you?
The journey. The journey. The journey. The journey.
Welcome back to another episode of The Journey. I'm your host, Larry Robinson, and today we have a Memphis icon that's straight out of South Memphis. He's a Hamiltonian.
Yes.
For those that don't know, that means he went to Hamilton High School. But before we get to this, brother, we got a quote. And the quote comes from the great Cicely Tyson. It goes like this: challenges make you discover things about yourself that you never really knew. What does that mean? It's that when you're going through those tough times, don't get dismayed, don't get scared, don't get anything. Just take it as a learning opportunity. Learning in the sense that you can do it a better way, because there's something in this challenge that's going to give you something that you need on this journey, on your own journey. So listen, we have Brother Norman Miller. Of course he's a man of Kappa Alpha Psi. Of course he's a visionary. Of course he believes in achievement in all field of human endeavor. He's an entrepreneur, creator, and he's a leader. 2 companies, a for-profit and a non-profit. So listen, he's a husband, he's a father. Listen, without further ado, Brother Norman Miller. What's happening, Norman?
Thank you, sir.
Man, I appreciate you coming in and hanging with
you
us.
finally got me. Finally got us on both our schedules. We're busy, but thank you for this opportunity.
Absolutely.
Glad to be here.
Absolutely.
Glad to be here.
Now, you said something about that quote.
Yeah, that quote, man, I just looked up and saw that challenges make you discover things about yourself that you never really knew. And so I thought about what I'm doing today in my career.
Okay.
I didn't go to school to do this.
Oh,
It's
no?
not something, no. I did go to school to be a business owner.
Okay.
But in 1986,
Okay.
in the 80s, you know, just like right now, we're having issues with the opioid crisis.
Right.
Where in the 80s, we had those issues with the cocaine crisis
Okay.
all over the country.
Okay.
Well, Memphis wasn't left out. And
Okay.
so around 84, got involved with cocaine and all of that and became addicted.
Oh.
Got addicted to cocaine, and from 80, all of 85 and most of 86, was addicted to rock cocaine. They called it crack. Now, back then, we rocked it
You?
ourselves. Yes, sir. I thought you knew that. Yeah.
No.
So that's how I got in this field. So I became addicted to crack cocaine. And I reached a point in my life where, you know, things just like you were just talking about the challenges that people face.
Right.
Things weren't happening. I was like, man, this is crazy. And so I reached a point where I'm like, man, forget it.
Whoa.
And I thought about suicide. I did.
Really?
I contemplated suicide. But being the egotistical, arrogant Kappa man that I am, I wasn't gonna put no gun to my head, nothing
Right.
like that. So I was sitting at home one day and I said, man, if I'm gonna do this, it's gotta be big. It's gotta make TV. I want it to be on the news, you know, that type of thing. And so I told myself, I said, I had a 280ZX at that time.
Okay.
I said, I'm gonna drive my car off in the Mississippi River. That'll make the news and the front page of the paper.
So,
You know,
so wait a minute. Let me unpack this for those that are listening and watching this. You were going to take your car. You were trying to make a big splash with how you killed yourself.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, if I'm gonna die, I'm a Kappa, and I don't want to be on page section D of the paper.
You want to be on the front
Yeah, I need to
page.
be on the front page. You know, you don't go out with a blast, and you know. But that's what the addiction and that voice was telling me. You know, do that. And yeah, I got in the car, and I was headed that way. But thank God for a stronger voice
Okay.
that spoke to me and said, "Now you know you can't swim." So once you're off in that Mississippi and you change your mind, it's on you, bro. And so I turned around and went on back home. And the rest is history, and here I am.
Wow. So, hey, I didn't know that. I had no idea. So let's go back. Let's go back.
Okay.
Tell me about when you were being raised, your earliest memories the household, who was in the household, and the like?
I grew up with both my parents. I grew up in Glenview in the late 60s. Well, I was born in the 60s, but in the 70s. And the neighborhood was a blue-collar, working class community.
Okay. Who was home with you? Who was in the house?
My father, my mother, and my oldest brother. I had an older sister and I had a younger brother. So it was 4 kids, 2 adults.
Okay, you were the third.
I was third child, second from the youngest or whatever, yeah.
Okay.
And so
who else had now? I'm gonna let you
Okay,
I'm gonna let you
go
unpack.
ahead,
I'm gonna let you
go
unpack
ahead.
it in the second half.
Go ahead.
But on this part, I want to know, of all the people outside of your household, who had the biggest impact on young Norman Miller?
I would say it was a coach that coached me doing basketball when I played basketball in junior high. They call it middle school now.
Right.
And a guy named Mike Rayner, who gave me my first job when I was in the 10th grade at a Burt's Men and Boys store. Okay. Mike taught me about dressing, about shining your shoes, about all of that, how to treat women, all that. Mike. So I would say Michael Rayner was the one that had a major impact.
Well, shout out to Mike. Shout out to Mike.
Major impact.
All right, I got one. What decision did you make as a young person that ended up having a lifelong impact, even though at the time you didn't really know it was going to be that big of a deal, but it had a big impact on you looking back?
As a decision I made as a young person. I won't say I made the decision, but I think people saw things in me that I didn't see in me. I had low self-esteem. I didn't feel good about myself. So, but I always had those teachers and folks that pulled stuff out of me and put me in situations that I was not comfortable. I got caught up in the busing era in the 70s. Middle school, we got bused to Colonial from South Memphis. Just being real with you, hadn't been around a lot of white people. You know, had a couple of white teachers, but didn't hang around them. You know, didn't grow up with any. And so got bused to a middle school. And it was interesting back then. They were trying to make everything equal. So they, you would have a student council president. You have a black one and a white one. Well, I was the black one. They would have just whatever they had.
So a natural
and then
leader.
they put, folks say that now. They say that. I guess you can say that because I said God put it in me. And so I was always that one that got pulled out to represent our community. I guess you say our community.
Well, you polemark of Memphis Alumni Chapter.
Well, that's a big deal.
So
yes,
yeah,
that's a big deal.
You're leading the Noops.
Yeah,
you're leading the Noops.
And that's what, you know how that is.
Oh, yeah. Let me ask you, as a young person, who'd you dream you would be?
Dr. J.
Oh, so you was a hooping.
I was a baller till I broke my hip. I was a baller. Yeah, I loved the game.
So you thought you'd be in the NBA?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Because I not only had, I think it's still some people alive that can attest to how good I was, but I also made good grades.
Okay.
So I wasn't that athlete that was, you just can play ball, but you're dumb.
Right.
No, I could play ball and I made good grades, honor student, that type of stuff. Okay. So, yeah.
When'd you know you was going to be okay? When could you look in the mirror and say, you know what? I can do this thing called life.
In '86, when I decided to go to the drug rehab to get help.
Okay.
That opened me up to so many things. My counselor, who's a white gentleman, just saw things in me, and he pulled things out of me, and he told me, he said, Norm, you can impact people. You have a personality that you can touch folks' lives. And, and at that time, you're coming off drugs. I'm like, man, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. And, I get sober, and about a year after getting off drugs, a lady offered me a counseling position. And that was in 1987, and the rest is history. It's 2024. I'm still doing the same thing.
Wow.
From 1987,
Wow.
yeah.
Last question of the segment. Most black men have a moment when they realize they are a black man in America. What was that for you? Hold on. Hold that thought. Hold that thought.
Go ahead.
Listen, we're going to be back on the journey. Our brother Norman Miller's going to share with us when he realized he was a brother. Stay right there. This is The Journey on the Kudzukian Network. I'm telling you, don't go nowhere.
The Boys of Color Conference is here again.
The Gentlemen's League and The Journey are hosting the Boys of Color Conference right here in Memphis, Tennessee at Agri Center International.
Parents, send your young men in grades 3 through 12 on Saturday, March 29th for a day of learning, inspiration, and mentoring. From coding to boxing to cooking, there's something for everyone.
Empower your son to dream bigger, achieve greater, and break barriers. Watch him take the first step toward a brighter future.
Register at thegentsleague.org.
Boys of Color Conference, March 29th at Agri Center International. Welcome back to The Journey. Now, we have Brother Norman Miller. Once again, man of Kappa Alpha Psi. In fact, he's a Memphis Alumni Chapter pole mark. Number 2, he's a Hamiltonian. Number 3, we found out that he's a recovering drug addict at some point in his life, but he's now moved way beyond that, and now he's a business owner. He owns a nonprofit. So the brother's doing amazing things. Before we left, we asked him about when he realized he was a black man. But before we ask him that question, I got another question. Norman, what's your superpower? What's that thing that you do better than anybody else?
Be me.
Okay.
Be me. And that's what I discovered. I was so busy in my addiction and all that, trying to be somebody else. Man, if I could be like that brother, if I could be like this brother, I can. And my counselor told me something that stuck with me for 37 years. He said, you're so busy trying to be somebody else. He said, who's going to be you? And I said, wow.
That's powerful.
Wow.
Say that again.
He
Say
said,
that again.
you're so busy trying to be somebody else. Who's going to be you? And that's when I realized every individual that's in this earth, God put us here with a purpose.
Right.
Most of us never discover purpose. And if you don't discover purpose, guess what? What society needs from you that God gifted you with, you cheat society by not being you. So I got real busy being me.
Ooh.
Real busy being me. And so the end result of that is people's lives are being changed as a result of me getting help myself. Wanting to make sure that they get that same service I got.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
So being you, so you're walking down the street, you're walking down Bill Street. These folks see you on the other side, they run over to you and they say, man, who are you? What would you say?
Hey, I tell them I'm Norman Miller.
Okay.
I'm a child of the Most High God.
Okay.
I'm a business owner. I'm a family man. I'm a lover of people. And right there, I'll start loving on them.
Oh,
that's what I'll do.
Man.
I'll start loving on them. Because that's what our young people need. They got to see somebody that looks like them, that they see up here.
Right.
And see themselves down here. Mm-hmm. I come down here where they are and let them know, I'm no better than you.
Right.
I made some decisions to get me here, and you can make that same decision. You can't let where you're from, your circumstances, your skin color, any of that stop you from excelling in life.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's what I do.
So let's go back to the question I asked before we left for the break. When did you realize that you was a black man?
Well, my parents always let me know I was one. Because you think about it, I grew up in Tennessee, Mississippi right there, Arkansas across the bridge. And as a young boy, for a long time, I wouldn't even drive through Mississippi. Even after I got of age to go into college, I drove around Mississippi.
Really?
Because Mississippi had a reputation. They hung black men. So I knew I was a black man, but there were always white people that reminded me that I was a black man. I remember a fourth grade teacher at Roselle Elementary, at that time, very racist woman, you know. She reminded me I was a black man. And after I got off drugs, what I had always done for a living was sales.
Okay.
And so I went to apply for this sales position. I saw it in the paper. I went to apply for the sales position. I'm not going to call the name of the company, but it was a glass company. And I'm going to try not to call the name of that company. And so when I went in to fill out the application, there were other people sitting around there. I was on the black that was there at that time. Mm-hmm. And there were other white people, and they were just sitting there. And so another white man came in after me, so I'm filling out my application. And she told him, which she didn't tell me, she told him, fill out your application, and we'll call you up when your time comes for your interview. Mm-hmm. I saw a white gentleman come from the back office, looked over at me, whispered to her, And then I realized what he told her. When I went back to take my application up, she said, oh, he said he'll look at your application and he'll give you a call.
Oh, wow.
So he didn't interview me on the spot. And so, but all I can do is, I don't know if the gentleman would ever watch this podcast, but just in case you're watching, my name's Norman Miller. I'm the one that you discriminated against that day, but I want to tell you, thank you. Thank you for making that decision not to interview me, because now I am where I am. And I promise you, I bet I'm doing a hell of a lot better in life than he's doing.
Ooh-wee. All right. All right. Well, listen, I gotta get more. I gotta get more. What's your relationship like with your brothers, your siblings? As you came up, how did you fit in the midst of the 4 kids?
Well, my oldest brother was, man, I think he about 7 years older than me, so he was always, and I always tried to run with him. He was so much older than me. Then he went off to the military, he came back home, and then my younger brother was closer to me. My sister was real quiet, and she stayed in her room. But I'm good with all my siblings. As a matter of fact, my oldest brother worked part-time for me because he's retired, so he works part-time for me, and my sister's been working for me probably, 8, 9 years now? Yep, so we're good. Yeah.
What's the younger brother doing?
He does bail bonding. He's a noob too.
All right.
Yeah, he's a noob, but he does bail bonding and, takes care of my mom, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. All right. So tell me, early memories of school. You was a hooper. So you was a hooper and you were a scholar.
Yeah.
How did that dynamic work throughout your school
It worked real
journey?
good. It worked real good, especially when it came to the women. No, I'm just kidding. No. It worked real good. You're smart and you play ball.
Right.
Yeah. But I broke my hip in the 8th grade. Yeah, it slipped out of place. It is interesting. I'll never forget the game. I was Larry Fitch.
Right.
Back then, he was coaching at Richland Junior High.
Okay.
Junior high school.
Okay.
We were playing them. I was at Colonial. We were playing them in a tournament.
Okay.
And his point guard was Michael Brooks, and you may have heard that name. He was probably the best point guard ever come out of this city.
Okay.
Went to UT Knoxville. And that's where my hip slipped out of place in that game. And I was never able to play again. And so, of course, self-esteem based on being a baller, it's like, okay, wow, now what am I? And so I just chose to stay on the educational route and say, okay, well, I'll do the books.
Okay.
I'll do the books. But I love school.
Right.
And you said I went to Hamilton in South Memphis. I went to Hamilton in the 80s, late 70s, early 80s. At a time, Hamilton was one of these schools in Memphis, Tennessee.
Right.
Educators sent their kids there and everything.
Right.
And we had some of the most beautiful women in the city went to Hamilton. I never missed a day of school. If I was sick, I tried to go to school. Yeah. So I had motivation to go to school.
All right. Tell me about your transition to adulthood. So where'd you go to school?
College. I left Hamilton, went to Morehouse.
Oh, you went to Morehouse. You a Morehouse man.
Yeah, I went to Morehouse my freshman year of college. Matter of fact, Dexter King was down there at the same time.
Okay.
With me, and Bernice was at Spelman.
Okay.
So I got to meet the King family and all of that. But I went to Morehouse, stayed a year, then transferred back here to Christian Brothers.
Okay.
Yeah, went to Christian Brothers.
Now, why'd you transfer back home? Then this Atlanta wasn't good for you?
No, loved Atlanta. You all decided to elect Ronald Reagan president of the United States. And Ronald Reagan went from, back when I first went to college, they gave you a lot of Pell Grants.
Right.
It paid for everything. He became the president. It's almost like, okay, let's put these kids in debt, which they're still doing today.
Right.
And so they started, you get all these loans to go to college, and I wasn't about to let my parents go into debt for my education, so I transferred back here and went to Christian.
So you went from one of the Mecca schools, as far as in the black community and HBCU world,
right,
to Christian Brothers,
right,
PWI.
Right.
How did you deal with the transition from going from where you were kind of lauded because the environment was made for you,
right,
to a school that literally probably not too long had accepted as, early, not too many brothers and sisters at the time?
It was challenging. It was. You think about it. I'm in the AU Center.
Right.
Morehouse, Clark, Spelman, Morris Brown. positive black people.
Everything was enriching for you.
Man, it was lovely. And then to come back here and build at Christian Brothers and not even see a whole lot of us.
Right.
It was challenging.
And how
but,
did you make it through?
Well, one thing I did, I pledged Kappa
Okay.
while I was there. They didn't have a chapter at Christian Brothers at that time, so that's why I ended up pledging at Kappa Beta, which was Memphis State then,
Right.
and now University of Memphis.
Right.
So becoming a fraternity guy, and then bonding with the few blacks that were there.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're a very resilient group of people. We'll make it do what we have to do to
Right.
survive where we are.
Right.
And so yeah, that's what happened.
What did Memphis mean to you? What role did Memphis play in your development as, number one, a young black man, and then as an older, successful black man?
I have a saying, and everybody know what everybody said, man, I'm from Memphis, man. I'm from Memphis, man.
Right.
Memphis shaped me,
Okay.
gave me everything I needed to survive in this real world. Even when I went to Morehouse,
Okay.
we stood out at Morehouse. I never forget, it was like, I think 7 or 8 of my classmates that went down. 5 of us were at Morehouse, a couple were at Clark, a few were at Morris Brown. And the young ladies, you guys came in from everywhere, Jersey and everything, and they would always say, man, those Memphis women are different. Yeah, Memphis people are different. And that's why I try to get people to see, man, I got to get out of Memphis. I got to get out. Memphis ain't. No, if you're having challenges in Memphis, look at you. Because wherever you go, there you are.
Right.
So, you leave Memphis and go to Atlanta. You have the same challenge in Atlanta because the problem is not the city. The problem is you.
Okay.
And so we can survive where we are. And spiritually, when I realized that God had a purpose for me here, He had already destined for me to be whatever I am, I just started walking in that. And it wasn't easy. You have a challenge. You're a business owner, I remember the first 5, 6, 7, 8 years of being in business, not being able to pay ourselves. And I had a business partner at that time, which is one of your employees' father.
Right.
We couldn't pay ourselves. We could pay our employees, but we couldn't pay ourselves. And so it was a challenge, but we didn't quit.
Right.
We did not quit. And thank God for a praying wife, because, it was some challenging days sometimes,
Right.
Like, hey, we got to pay these bills, and you're not bringing anything home,
Right.
But we stayed the course, and people see you now, and they be like, man, I want to be where you are. My thing is, do you want to go through what I went through, though?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
You mentioned the wife. What has she meant for your journey? And what was one of those pivotal moments where she really was able to help you make it through?
Well, I'm going to say this here. My wife's a praying woman, right? So she was in prayer and was the one that told me, because I had been in the counseling field for a few years. I got out of it and got into sales.
Right.
And so I was a manager at a dealership and doing 6-figure income, doing very well.
Okay.
One morning I go in the kitchen. She said, have a seat at the table. And I go, okay, what's going on? She want to talk. Mm-hmm. And she just said, I was in prayer, and God said it's time for you to start that business, that counseling business. I'm like, huh? She said, yeah. He said, basically, he just told me that there are people that not going to get their lives together until you open that business. I'm like, wow. I said, oh, okay. I said, I hear you. But I'm thinking, man, I got a 6-figure income. Somebody else can help those folks. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I'm going to tell you what happened. I went to work. And I got a call from a good friend of mine that used to be my manager in the car business.
Right.
I call his name Terry Starks. And Terry's a pastor now.
Okay.
And he had become a pastor back then. And he was in Phoenix because he was running Penny Hardaway Enterprises for Penny.
Okay.
And so he was in Phoenix. He called me about 2-3 days after my wife told me about starting his business, right?
Right.
I answered the phone, and they called me to the phone. I go to the phone. He said, Norm, this Terry, what's going on? I said, hey, man, everything good? He said, man, how's that business going? I said, man, car business booming, man. I said, you know how it is? He said, no, I ain't talking about that business. He said, I got in prayer that you had opened a counseling business.
Whoa, God spoke to someone else.
That was confirmation.
Oh, yeah.
I hung up on him, right? I just hung up.
You hung up?
Yeah, because I'm like, whoa, now come on. And I believe in God. I believe in the Holy Spirit, all that.
Right.
So I'm thinking, wow. So I hung up on him. I called my wife. I said, have you talked to Terry? She said, I don't even know Terry's phone number. What you mean have I talked to Terry? I said, I'll call you right back. I called him back. He said, man, what you hang up for? And I told him the story about what my wife had gotten and what he had gotten and all that. And it was right then. I told Jeremy's father, we were selling cars together, and we stepped out in 2003 and started the business. Wow. Right. And so my wife, you asked what her prayer life, and I have a prayer life, but her prayer life is what kept me on course and being able to stay the course. Because there were times I was going to quit on God. I ain't going to lie to you. I was driving to work, didn't have no income, payment coming, no money coming in. I was like, hey, God, I know you want these folks to get help.
I've been there.
Yeah.
Been there.
Right, right. So I'm going to go back and sell cars. I know you got somebody else out here that can help these folks. Because Norman got to get this money.
Right.
And so I'm driving, and pop your collar, feel like you done told God off, whatever. Mm-hmm. And I heard a voice that said, who you think prospered you in the car business? Yeah, you did, God. He said, well, the same thing I did for you in the car business, I'm going to do for you in this business. You go to work and do what you do. And I went to work with a new attitude. I mean, we might have had 3 clients. And so I told my business partner, I said, man, let's set this room up about 20 chairs and let's act like this room is full. And let's go in there and give these people everything we got. Even though it ain't but 3 of them, let's act like it's 20. Right. And let's pour into them everything we got. And that's what we started doing. And here we are, 2024, probably got 125, 150 clients we see on a daily basis. Wow. Yeah.
That's
so
amazing.
God is faithful to what he said he was going to do. I had to stay the course. And through them times, my wife would get something in prayer, and that's what held me, sustained me. I still had those papers at home because she would write it down and she'd give it to me, and I'd read it, and that's what I would take to work and put on the wall at work and all that, just what God has said, and he was talking about 2024 in 2003. But I wanted 2024 to be in 2003. You know
right,
how it is.
I
need to be making this paper right now. I got a wife, I got kids, and all that. And I remember we had to sit our kids down because they were used to just getting what they wanted. I mean, that's what they came up in. They were, Dad, I want it. Go get it. Okay. Well, had to sit them down and say, hey, y'all, this is what's going on. Dad's starting this business. Money's a little slow, all that. So, and we talk over dinner now and we laugh about that. And I can laugh about it now. Right. But it wasn't funny then. Wasn't funny then. No, it was not.
All right, man, I'm going to take you back to South Memphis. You standing on the street. What street were you
Kingdale.
raised?
I grew up on Kingdale.
You raised on Kingdale. What was the address?
1672.
Okay, we stopped
Kingdale.
in front of 1672 Kingdale. You said, man, let me go in here. You go in, you open the door. Wait a minute, sitting at the table eating a bowl of cereal is young Norman Miller. Mm-hmm. What would you say to the young Norman Miller?
Stay the course. Keep doing what you're doing. You're on the right track, even though it may not look like it. Enjoy your life. Be everything that you can be. Be involved in everything you can be involved in, and just keep going till you get to the end.
Okay. Now, I'm going to ask you about regrets. Is there anything in your life that you would want a mulligan on, that you do over?
Nope. Okay. And I said nope because I had a preacher ask me that one time. He said, well, what about your drug addiction? You wouldn't do that over? And I thought about it. I said, no, because there were some days when I was getting high. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, it was. The Bible speaks to that. The Bible says sin is fun for a season. Right. So I had some fun seasons. I just didn't know the season had ended. I was trying to keep it going. But I think what God allowed me, some people like, God made you an addict? No, God didn't make me an addict. He tried to show me ways around being an addict. But he gave us free will, and I did my thing. But what he allowed me to go through prepared me for today. Because there's a lot of us out there going through this opioid addiction, addicted to marijuana, addicted to meth, all this stuff. They got to see somebody that look like them, that's been through what they've been through, to say, hey, man, you can get to the other side. Right. You can get to the other side. I have one of my counselors who's gone to be with the Lord now, used to, because, I don't do counseling anymore. I run the business. Right. But she would always call me in periodically and say, Mr. Miller, come in here so I can introduce you. And I would go in the room and she said, y'all, this is Mr. Miller, Norman Miller, da-da-da. He's the CEO of this company. I'd be like, what? Don't do that. You ain't got to tell nobody who I am and all that. And she finally told me why she did that. because it was predominantly young black boys and men in that group.
Right.
And she wanted them to see a black man that had come out of where they were and was doing something different and was successful at it.
Man, that's powerful.
Yeah.
All right, this is it.
Okay.
This is it. And you're going to have the last words. I want you to say in that camera right there, you're talking to young boys, young men, and I want you to leave them with a Norman Millerism, something that they can take from this moment that they will always have with them from the moment they've been watching you and listening to you.
Okay. I would say to that young brother, whatever you're facing right now, whatever you're going through, don't quit. You're destined for greatness. God put a portion of himself on the inside of you, and when you realize that you're a God, you'll start performing like a God. Stay where you are. Keep doing what you're doing, but don't quit. It's better on the other side. The grass is green on the other side. I love you. A lot of brothers out here love you, and we're for you, and we're on your side.
Don't let them challenges keep you down, because that's what builds you up. So you just stand on top of the challenges.
That's it.
Just keep stacking those challenges.
That's it.
All right? Listen, I'm Larry Robinson for our guest, Brother Norman Miller. Thank you, Norman.
Thank you, brother.
Appreciate you, man.
Man, appreciate you. I enjoyed it.
Keep coming back, because we're going to keep bringing these Memphis icons that you're going to love, and they're going to enrich you, and you're going to do all the things that you want to do. Just keep coming back. This is The Journey on the Kudzukian Network. Till the next time. Peace.
Thank you to our partner, the Grand Boulé of Sigma Pi Phi Fraternity, Delta Chapter. To hear more incredible stories like this, be sure to download the Kudzukian app from the App Store or Google Play, or check out the Journey Memphis podcast on all your major podcast providers. Also, check us out on the Kudzukian Network.